in and make yourself at home.
Astronaut, and it's kind of like a couple times I was
Flip the thing to the next slide. Well, not that slide. Well, anyway, 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 8. I think we're all familiar with this. We're going to ask ourselves the question today, who is Satan? Who is our adversary? 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 8 says, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. I wonder, is the Bible concept of Satan simply the personification of evil, or is he a real spiritual being or spirit being? How is he described in the following passages? Let's look at some places in Scripture. Matthew chapter 4 and verse 1. What's he say there?
Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil.
So, all right, Matthew 12 and verse 24.
Well, 24.
Yes, sir.
When the Pharisees heard it, they said, this man casts out demons only by Beelzebul, the ruler of demons.
All right, and then 26.
26, and Satan casts out Satan. He is divided against himself. How then shall the kingdom stand?
All right, now chapter 13 and verse number 28.
And he said to them, an enemy has done this. And the slave said to him, do you want us then to go and gather them up?
All right, then verse 39 is an amplification of that.
And the enemy who sowed them is the devil, and the harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels.
All right, John chapter 12 and verse 31.
Now is the judgment of this world. Now the ruler of this world will be cast out.
All right, and then 2 Corinthians 4:4.
In their case, the God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God.
All right, then Ephesians 2 and verse 2.
Two,
Yes, sir.
wherein in time past ye walked according to the course of this world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience.
All right, and then lastly, Revelation 12 and verse 9.
So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast out with him.
All right, so the Bible concept of Satan is that he is a spirit being, and he's described as one who has volition of his own, and his purpose is to seek whom he may devour and take us to hell with him. He has angels or demons that work with him, and he's planning the demise of everyone that he possibly can. So he is our adversary. Now, how is Satan the enemy of God? How is Satan the enemy of God? How are the ways of Satan opposite from the ways of God? And what kind of things has he introduced to the world?
In every way possible.
Yes, he is the antithesis of God. John chapter 8 and verse 44.
You are your father, the devil, and the lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own. For he is a liar and the father of all.
Father, every lie that's out there starts with the devil himself. 1 John chapter 3 and verse number 10.
By this, the children of God, the children of the devil, are obvious. Anyone who does not practice righteousness is not of God, nor one who does not love his brother.
All right. And then Romans 6 and verse 16, he says, do you not know that when you present yourselves to someone as slaves for obedience, you are slaves to that one you obey, either of sin resulting in death or of obedience resulting in righteousness? In Acts chapter 13, verse number 10. Acts chapter 13 and verse number 10.
And said, you who are full of deceit and fraud, you son of the devil, you enemy of all righteousness, will you not cease to make crooked the straight ways of the Lord?
All right, so the devil is trying to take everything that God has made righteous and right and turn it upside down and make it evil and wicked. Even beautiful things, the love between a husband and wife has been polluted and changed. He's changing now. I don't know what is going to be the end of this gender thing. Why is it being pushed so hard? What is the end result? I mean, why has this become such a big thing? The devil's got some major plan behind all of this that I don't think any of us know exactly how far it's going to go. But if you can't figure out the most basic thing about yourself, then you can't figure out anything about anybody. And I think it all comes down to, I want to be who I want to be, no matter what anyone else says. I'm going to be what I'm going to be.
They don't know that in years to come, they'll want to change that.
That's right. We're seeing more and more of that. There was a little 16-year-old girl that had surgery and everything. And now she's regretting that, and she's speaking out against it, because she said when she was 12, when she had the surgery, at 12 years old, she had no idea that she would have remorse over the whole situation. Somebody had their hand in this, Robert.
I think the devil understands that if he can destroy the family, all the other dominoes will fall.
I think you're right. That's very true. If he can take the father out of the home and take the mother out of the home and let the government raise the children, then he's got it. What are some things that the devil has introduced that God never intended for us to have? We just mentioned that one. What's some other things that he's introduced that God never intended for us to do or to think or to perform?
No fault divorce.
No fault divorce, yeah. I grew up basically in the 70s and 80s, and it's interesting to me that how the face of divorce changed in the 70s and 80s to where there is actually a no-fault divorce. Used to be you had to have adultery as the only reason, or abuse of some sort, but now it's just for any cause whatsoever.
When I was in high school, we were told that if we went to a Christian college, that the divorce rate from a Christian college was almost nothing. And, but that's not true now.
It's not
About
true.
the same as the world.
That's right. It's about the same, the church and in the world. It's because we haven't taught what the Bible teaches on it. And it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. Both of my parents were married multiple times. And my stepmother was married multiple times. So and let me tell you, the hurt doesn't just hurt the husband and the wife. It goes down to the children and grandchildren. And the next thing you think about is if a couple divorces and one takes the children away, there's a whole set of grandparents that never get to see that child again, and those children don't get to see their grandparents. Don't you think that grandparents are part of the child rearing process as much as parents? Well, maybe not as much, but have a big role and important position to play. But yeah, divorce and the breakdown of the family are things that the devil. God made the first family exactly the way that He intended for every family to be from now on, and we've changed that. In fact, marriage is becoming less and less common. There's more and more people just what we used to call shacking up. Yes, sir.
If there was gays when I was growing up,
You
we
didn't know about it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They might have been something, did they hit,
Yeah. Yeah. I heard a story of a man that said he was leaving England because of homosexuality, because it used to be back in the 1800s that they would fine you and then execute you. And then later on, they would just fine you. And then later on, it was just a slap on the wrist, and then it was nothing. He said, well, why are you leaving the country over all that? He said, I'm afraid they're going to make it compulsory. So, because, what's the next step? And that's one of the things that we've got to think about is how we've downplayed sin as if it has no effect on us whatsoever, that it does no bad lingering effect on us, but it does. Very much so. Abortion. Yes. Yes, sir.
I don't think people are thinking of the end result.
No,
I just don't think we preach that anymore, Joe.
I don't either.
They come to church, get their ears tickled,
Mhm.
and I just don't think they think how serious it is.
Yeah,
Another big one is pornography.
pornography, and it's so rampant everywhere you go. And you can't listen to the radio anymore. I don't care if you're talking about country music or rock music or rap music. It just shocks me how the language, just words that used to be absolutely prohibited on the public airwaves are just common every day. It just breaks my heart.
You don't
So-
see anything anymore,
No.
even on news and things.
Yeah. Y'all know who Megyn Kelly is? The news broadcaster. Used to be on Fox. I don't know if she's on Fox anymore. I saw a little clip the other day, and she let out about 8 F-bombs, one right after another, just and I was like, how unprofessional can you possibly get? And how much of your audience are you going to lose over that? Well, they're going to lose people like us. I'll never listen to her again. So,
Used to be one of the worst things could be a child, and now they condone the,
yeah,
molestation of children.
yes. And it's getting to where they said that the word pedophile is derogatory and it shouldn't be used.
Right. Forgot what
Yes, kid.
Yeah.
that's the problem. Everything they put a euphemism,
Right.
they change it to
So
totally
make it a
what it
little
used to
bitty,
be. Oh yeah,
yeah.
transition.
Yeah. We had preacher Jay Andrews said, you can take poison and put it in a soda pop bottle, put it in the refrigerator, and if somebody comes along and just drinks that Coke bottle full of poison. Is it gonna hurt them? You better believe it is. Just because it's labeled something else doesn't make it less damaging. So we've got to really watch. So I think all of those passages show us that those that practice unrighteousness are of their father, the devil. That when we do those things, we are part of God's enemies because we're against God. All right, let's talk for just a minute about the origin of Satan. The Bible doesn't really give us a detailed account of where the devil came from, but certain reasonable conclusions can be drawn from some Bible statements that will help us see. First of all, let's ask the question, is Satan a divine being? Like something like the dark side of God? What is true about the power of God is the same of the devil, but only opposite? I don't think the Bible teaches that at all. I think that the devil is a created being that fell from the glory of God. Matthew chapter 19 and verse number 26.
Jesus beheld them and said unto them, which man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible.
Yes. Yes. With God, all things are possible, but with the devil, he only has what power God gave him. Let's look at Nahum. We used this passage not too long ago in a sermon. Nahum chapter 1, verses 2 down through verse 8. I'll read it from the New American Standard Version. A jealous and avenging God is the Lord. The Lord is avenging and wrathful. The Lord takes vengeance on his adversaries, and he reserves. The Lord is slow to anger and great in power, and the Lord leaves the guilty unpunished. In the whirlwind and storm is his way. The clouds are the dust beneath his feet. He rebukes the sea and makes it dry. He dries up all the rivers. Bashan and Carmel wither. The blossoms of Lebanon wither. Mountains quake because of him, and the hills dissolve. Indeed, the earth is upheaved by his presence. The world and all its inhabitants in it. Who can stand before his indignation? Who can endure the burning of his anger? His wrath is poured out like fire, and the rocks are broken up. The Lord is good, a stronghold in the day of trouble, and he knows those who take refuge in him. But with an overflowing flood, he makes a complete end of its sight and will pursue his enemies into darkness. So we see God is 100% righteous. The devil, on the other hand, is the opposite of that. He's everything that is unrighteous. Anything that is impure, anything that is sinful comes from the devil. There's no darkness in God. There's no untruth in God. It's all truth. The devil is the father of lies and all lies. From the following passages, what is true about the power of Satan? Let's go back to the book of Job. Job chapter 1 and verse number 12.
And the Lord said to Satan, behold, all that he has in your power, only do not lay a hand on his person.
All right. And so the devil departed from his presence. So God gave him the power to do what he did. Look at chapter 2. Yes. So he could only do what God gave him power to do. He didn't have the power to do anything else. Chapter 2 and verse 6.
Job.
Yes.
So the Lord said to Satan, behold, he is in your power, only spare his life.
Right, so God did limit him to taking his life and afflicting only his health. So the devil doesn't have any power that is not given to him. And I believe that the devil doesn't have any power over you or me that we don't give him. If I don't give him the power in my life, because the Bible tells us very plainly that if we will resist the devil, he has to flee. He can't stand against the power of God. It may leave for a season and come back, but at the time that we're struggling and wrestling with temptation, if we will resist, then the devil has to go away. I think also that's a good thing to pray for each other during those times, because sometimes it's hard to overcome sin. Chuck?
The phrase "the devil made me do it" is a cop-out.
Yeah.
It's not true. He can't make you do
It's right. That was Flip Wilson,
Yeah.
Geraldine.
Joe, the very first verse of the Bible says that in the beginning God created heaven and the earth, and the devil was very wicked, but he did Eve so after that, she did wrong, or she did. So he's been around.
All right, that's true. In Luke chapter 4 and verse number 6, this one really hammers the point down. Luke chapter 4 and verse 6.
And the devil said to him, all this authority I will give you, and their glory, for this has been delivered to me, and I give it to whomever I wish.
So God gave him the power over the earth, and he's able to delve that out to other people or dally it up with other people as well. Staying in Luke chapter 22 and verse number 31. What's he saying?
Simon, Simon, behold, Satan has demanded permission to sift you like wheat.
Yeah. So
But I
he's
have prayed for you.
Yeah. So he's even demanding the power over us to try to cause us to sin and try to cause us to fall. John chapter 10 and verse 28.
If I do, then you believe not me, believe the works, that you may know and believe that the Father is in me and I in him.
No, is that 10:28?
No. It is my Bible.
Is it really?
Yeah.
John?
John, I'm sorry, it's 38.
Read 28. It'll make a whole lot more sense.
And I give unto you, or them, eternal life, and they shall never perish, neither shall any man pluck them out of my hand.
All right, so no one can snatch out of God's hand those that are in God. We can take ourselves out. We can remove ourselves, but the devil doesn't have that power to force us to sin against God. He can make it seem worth our while to do that, but it's not. All right, James chapter 4 and verse 7, we quoted already. Submit therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. That's a bless you, by the way. Yes, you do. You do need some blessing. So, these passages are telling us that Satan's power is limited, but it's very strong. He has the ability to do a lot of things in nature and through temptation in a lot of ways that you and I can't even imagine that he's able to wiggle his way in. I remember as a kid playing with the Ouija board, and boy, we got in trouble for that because the preacher back then even told us, he said, you're opening a gate to the occult that you may not be able to close. You might be opening your heart to the devil moving in such a way that you never, ever intended. So leave those things alone, because the devil is part of that. Did any of y'all ever have a Ouija board? No? You guys good parents. What'd you say?
I said I didn't, but I knew about them.
Yeah.
My friends did.
Right. Yeah.
About a magic eight.
Magic 8-ball, yeah. Did you ever break one of those open to try to find out what was in there? It's the devil that's in there. Is Satan an eternal or created being? This is something that we really should answer. Was he created or has he always been? And Colossians chapter 1 and verse 16 gives us the answer to that. Talking about God, for by him all things were created, both in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible. Notice what he says, whether they're thrones or dominions or rulers or authority, all things have been created through him and for him. So God created the devil. I don't think he created him wicked, but he made the choice. Apparently, angels are like us. They have the ability to make free choice. They have free moral agency. And the devil decided to change and do what was against God and has been from the beginning. So is the power resident within him and draw from himself, or has it been given to him? Is this his power that he has, or did God give him the power? Luke chapter 4 and verse 6 says, I will give you all this domain, for it has been handed over to me, and I give it to whomever I wish. So the only power that the devil has is what power God has given him. And he's limited the devil even today. There's things that he cannot do. He cannot. Well, there was a phenomenon that seemed to be very short just during the ministry of Christ and the apostles, was the demonic possession. You don't see that after the apostles passed on. So he cannot overwhelm us and force us to do things that we are not supposed to do, or fight against God with the devil's power without our allowing him that power.
That's like all the sins that people say that they were born with, and they can't do anything about it.
Yeah,
That's not true.
right.
It has to be that they didn't resist the devil at some time.
Right, exactly. Now, in John chapter 12 and verse 31, he says, judgment has come upon this world, and the ruler of this world will be cast out. So God has power over the devil. The devil is not equal with God in what he's able to do. John 19 and verse 11. Somebody read that for us. John 19 and 11.
Jesus answered him, you would have no authority over me at all unless it had been given you from above. Therefore, he who delivered me over to you has the greater sin.
All right. So we see that whatever power is on earth, whether it's kings or presidents or whoever else, that authority comes from God. However, I do believe just as much as God rules in the kingdoms of men, Daniel chapter 2, I think the same thing is true with the devil. He can infiltrate the minds and bodies of the rulers of this world. And I think that he has. Oh, you can look at people like Hitler, Osama bin Laden, maybe even some of the presidents that we've had. We see that the devil has infiltrated them, and they've made really stupid decisions that have taken us away from God. I think that some of the liberal judges on the Supreme Court, they're not thinking biblically, they're thinking with what's popular with the people. Did you have something to say, John?
That's a good one, dude.
Yeah,
God uses evil people
yeah.
for his punishments and things like that. We know that. So he probably put Nebuchadnezzar in power because
Yes.
he was so evil to take care of the problems in Judah.
Mhm.
And
I think you're right.
he could be doing that today too. That's why maybe we have so many evil people in power. I don't know. We don't know.
You've probably heard this said before, but we are getting the government that we deserve. Because we have thwarted God's authority, and now we're voting in people that will do what is pleasing to us. We are such a give-me society that if there's a promise made that I'm going to get something for free, well, I'm going to vote for them so I can get something for free. There's no free meal. There's none out there. You got to give up something to get it. What did Satan choose to do with the authority given to him? Jude verse 6. Anybody have that? Jude 6.
And the angels who did not keep their positions of authority but abandoned them, these he has kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains for judgment on the great day.
All right, so there were some angels that didn't keep their own domain, but they abandoned it and their proper position. They gave that up to do something else, and therefore God is holding them in darkness until the day of judgment. 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 4 is basically an amplification of that. He said, "For God did not spare the angels when they sinned, but cast them into hell and committed them to pits of darkness reserved for judgment." Then verse 9 of that same chapter, "Then the Lord knows how to rescue the godly from temptation and to keep the unrighteous under punishment for the day of judgment." So, what did the devil choose to do with his power? With what God gave him to do? He chose to use it for evil instead of for good. Wonder what could have possibly been the motivation for the devil.
He was in the presence of God.
Yeah.
What would he do?
Why would he want to give up all that he had in the presence of God?
He wanted to be God.
Maybe.
1 John 3, verse 8. The one who practices sin is of the devil, for the devil sinned from the beginning. The Son of God appeared for this purpose, to destroy the works of the devil. So the devil has been here from the beginning and has sinned from the beginning. His motivation, I believe, was to take people away from God. Yet his own followers and pride was his main problem. He wanted to be God. 1 Timothy 3 in verse 6. This is talking about elders. in the church. Why do you think he gave this command when he talked about putting people in position of eldership?
And now a new convert, lest he become conceited, fall into the condemnation, and heard the devil.
All right, so pride, conceit is the devil's problem, and he's passed that on to us. I mean, so many people want the applause of men instead of the applause of heaven. How has he tried to thwart the plans of God? Going back to Genesis chapter 3, he says in verse 15, I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise you on the head, and you shall bruise him on the heel. What did he try to do? Tried to turn man against God. Okay, let's look at John, the Gospel of John, chapter 3, chapter 13, verses 1 and 2.
John 13, 1 and 2.
13, 1 and 2.
Now before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come, that he should depart from this world, Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The supper being ended, the devil having already put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him.
All right. Then in verse 27, he goes on and says, after the morsel, Satan then entered into him. Therefore Jesus said to him, talking about Judas Iscariot, what you do, do quickly. So he tries to kill the Savior of the world. Now, how stupid was that? You know, he had to know that God was going to raise from the dead. Certainly, you would think, at least in my mind, he knows the power of God, and he knows that he was going to be defeated because of the very prophecy that he prophesied there in Genesis chapter 3, that he would be unsuccessful. He might be able to kill Jesus, but he certainly couldn't keep him in the grave, because he is the resurrection and the life.
And he knows, the devil knows the word.
Yes. That's the scary thing, is that he knows it better than a lot of us. And as a result, he can trick us even with the Bible. In John chapter 14, in verse number 30, he says, I will not speak much more with you, for the ruler of this world is coming, and he has nothing in me. So, Jesus knew that the devil was trying to overthrow his power. What was Jesus able to do to him, to the devil? He was able to destroy the devil. Luke chapter 10, verse 17 down through verse 20. And then somebody else get John 16, 11. Luke 10, 17 down through verse 20.
And the 70 returned with joy, saying, Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name. And he said to them, I was watching Satan fall from heaven like lightning. Behold, I have given you authority to tread upon serpents and scorpions and over all power of the enemy, and nothing shall injure you. Nevertheless, do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rejoice that your names are recorded in heaven.
All right. You know, can you think of some situations where this became true? Where Jesus stepped in and fixed situations that would have thwarted the advance of the gospel? Yeah, that's the one I was thinking of. Shook him off into the fire.
When they were in prison.
Yeah. The earthquake coming to loose them.
Go by, and then Peter
Yeah.
being released.
Yeah. Yeah, just taken out.
Those guards were killed.
Yes. So in John chapter 16 and verse 11, what does it say?
And concerning judgment, because the ruler of this world has been judged.
All right, so Jesus judged, giving sentence to the devil, limiting his power and showing that God is the one that is truly in control. And in the end, the devil is going to be destroyed, and those that follow God will not be. They will be able to go to heaven. Hebrews chapter 2 and verse 14, therefore, since the children share in the flesh and blood, he himself likewise also partook of the same, that through death he might render powerless him who had the power of death, that is the devil, and might free those through fear of death were subject to slavery all their lives. What's he saying? He's saying that even though the devil may kill us, we have new life in Jesus Christ. The devil hasn't hindered us at all. In fact, he's done us a favor by taking our life, right? We get to go to heaven. So that's the way to think about that. What does the devil try to wrest away from God now? What is he trying to take from God right now? 1 John chapter 3, beginning in verse 8. Going down through verse 12. Anybody have that? Don't be bashful.
He who does what is sinful is of the devil, because the devil has been sinning from the beginning. The reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the devil's work.
There, underline that, what she just read, to destroy the works of the devil. And then
No
verse
one
9.
who is born of God will continue to sin, because God's seed remains in him. He cannot go on sinning because he has been born of God. This is, where am I going? 1, 2, 12?
Yes, ma'am.
This is how we know who the children of God are and who the children of the devil are. Anyone who does not do what is right is not a child of God, nor is anyone who does not love his brother. This is the message you heard from the beginning. We should love one another. Do not be like Cain, who belonged to the evil one and murdered his brother. And why did he murder him? Because his own actions were evil and his brothers were righteous.
You think the devil might be trying to steal away from God the power of life and death? I think he is. But that doesn't do him any good. He hasn't made any advantage. There awaits for him as the rebellious being punishment from the beginning. Okay, we will stop there and pick up. We're going to talk a little bit. We just got a couple more points on this, but wanted to talk about some passages that we have always thought applied to the devil, but don't necessarily apply to the devil. So be thinking about that. All right. Thank y'all.